Okay. All right. So this is the type of problem where we have larger arc, smaller arc. Now, we need to identify what's what. So if we look at what we have here in our diagram, what do we know right away? And you know what? I'm going to add something else. This might even be better. Or we could do AM for angle measure. Out of these three things that are given to us, or these three things that we need to know, what's given to us in this diagram? Who could tell us what you think is given to us in this diagram? Which one? Which arc? Is it the larger or smaller arc? Larger arc is 134. All right? What else do you think is given to us? Angle is given to us, which is 46 is the angle. The angle is going to be located here. There's your angle. It's going to be 2 times 46 equals 134 minus, well, do we know the smaller arc? Do we know what the smaller arc is yet? No, we don't know. That's an X. So LA, SA, and then the angle measure. All right, now, are we in a position where we can solve for the X? We can do that. Well, what's the first thing we need to do before anything else? What's the very first thing we have to do with this problem?
Multiply.
Multiply what? Okay, what do we get? That's the correct answer. So it's going to be 92 equals 134 minus X. Now, I think we're at a point we can solve for the X. Now, be careful, because what would be our first step? Who thinks they know what our first step's going to be? And be careful here. Who thinks they know what we have to do first? Okay, you have to minus 134 on both sides. So now here's where a lot of you are going to think, we got a problem here. So if we do 92 minus 134, what do we get?
Negative 42 equals negative X.
You give negative 42, but negative 42 equals negative X. Now, are we finished with this negative X business?
No.
What do we have to do?
Divide.
By? Almost. You're on the right track. We're going to divide by something.
42.
Not by 4. Not by 2. No, not divide by 2. All right, I'm going to show you all something. May not have seen this in a while. You don't see the number, but what's between this negative sign and the X? Oh, whoever said the 1 is right. There's a 1 here. It means there's a 1 here. So is negative 42 is equal to negative 1 times x. So you're on the right track. We got to divide by something. But rather than negative 42, we're going to divide by negative. What's this number here? Negative 1. So negative 42, we have to divide by negative 1. That's how we're going to get our x to this problem. So 42 will equal x. That's what we have going on here. So that's our setup for this type of problem. I want everybody to look at it because I want to tell you something. The next problem that's on the study guide is going to be the exact same. All right, questions before we go to the next problem? All right. So, everybody, what you're going to have to do, get ready to copy this because we're going to use this again. All right. You all have it? Okay, let me know when you're all ready. Because you will get a problem like this on your test, I guarantee you. That's a promise. All right. So we're just about wrapping it up. We finished. We're going to use this formula for your next problem. So if you're already on the next problem, if you want to start it, go ahead. All right. Yeah, you use this formula. And also, oops. And same thing. You have a larger arc, smaller arc. And then I forgot AM for angle measure. Now, for this problem, what do we have? What is given to us? Who could tell us what's given to us in this problem? Are we given angle measures or arcs or one and one? Remember, you're going to have a test in a couple days on this exact stuff. And I'm not going to be able to help you. Yeah. That is in 2 days. All right, so problem like this. How do we identify this problem? What's our larger arc, smaller arc, angle measure? What do we have here, folks? Ladies, gentlemen? What's what? Huh? Well, do we have the angle measure? That's what you're right. We don't have that, no. You have a larger and a smaller arc. That's right. Angle measures your x. We do have a larger and a smaller arc. What's our larger arc? Larger arc is 120, smaller arc 40. That's what we have here. It's going to be 120 minus 40. All right. So now here's what we do. What's 2 times x? Just 2x. That's fine. That's right. Now, what do we do with the 120 minus 40? Do we bring over to the other side, or do we just combine the 2 terms? Just combine the 2 terms. What's 120 minus 40? Yep. There you go. 2 times x. 2x equals 80. And our what's the only thing now we need to do? So one final step. Only step we have to take. There you go. So then x will equal. What's x going to equal? 40. There you go. So larger arc was 120. Smaller arc, 40. And it turned out the angle measure also was 40. So rarely that happens, but in this case it did. Questions? Anybody have any questions on this problem? So you will have a problem like this on your test, I guarantee you. Now, the only thing other thing I want to mention, and I think I might mention it again towards the end of class. There may be times, let's say, so this is something different, you could say, but related. I'm going to show you. I want you all to understand what I'm going to do next, and this is going to be important. You may see a problem like this. It's going to have to deal with the rules. Not exactly what I wanted, but all right, not exactly the diagram I wanted, but anyway, let's say, for instance, I'm going to give you 3 numbers. It's not drawn to scale, but I want you to understand where I'm going with this. That's 100. That one is, let's say 120. 220. And again, this is not drawn to scale, but I want you to understand the magnitude of this problem. Now, I'll give you 120, 190. I'm not giving you, you don't know the angle measure. You need to find it. However, we have a 100 here. I didn't give you this final piece of the arc. But can you find that little piece, given all the other numbers I gave you? Joe, you said we can find that last piece, right? All right. What do you do to get that last piece? Yeah, you got to get this little piece right here. Joey's right. You can get that piece.
You add all the numbers up and then subtract the 360.
That's what you do. Very good. This last piece right here, you're going to have to add your numbers and subtract from 360. So basically, once you add your three numbers, so I know it's going to be a little bunched. It's going to be 360 minus the sum of the other three, the 120 plus 100 plus 90. That's how you're going to get that last piece. So did anybody figure out what that number will be? So for this smaller arc, so this would be the larger arc. 100's your larger. So then the smaller arc would be how many degrees? Remember, the grand total has to add up to 360. And Joey said, oh, we got to take away these three numbers. Now, don't necessarily have to self-correct. You don't have to finish the prop. I just want you to figure out how many degrees remain to have the entire circle. That's what I want. So who could tell us how many degrees are left in this circle? 50. So SA would be 50. This part right here is going to be 50 degrees. I apologize, it was a little tight. But I wanted to talk about this type of problem because there is a chance you're going to have to find an angle. However, I'm not going to give you that smaller arc, but you can find it. Again, some of your circle is 360. If I give you 3 out of the 4 pieces, you can get that last piece. All right. Any questions on these types of problems? And then it goes back to, you want to find that X, you follow the same procedure as before. Then you can use this type of problem down here. But I wanted to talk about this type of problem where you're going to have to find the angle, but you're not going to have the smaller arc. You can get it because you know the sum of the 4 pieces of the arc has to be 360. It's going to be a 2-part question. I guarantee you're going to get a problem. The problem that you have in your test is going to be very similar to this one. But if you get that arc, then you're back to what you were up here. I'll highlight this one more time for everybody. All right, any final questions on these types of problems? Again, I promise you, you're going to get a problem that's just like this. That's a promise. Again, you can use your one-page of notes front and back. I'm giving you that opportunity because this is going to be the last unit test before your final. Don't forget, you still have a project, so you can still you have an opportunity to boost your grade.
So what does the project do?
For seniors,
Yeah.
it's due, I need it by noontime on the 25th. Non-seniors, I said the 31st, but you may have until probably that probably until that end of that week, like the first week of June, but you definitely need it done by your final.
Okay.
So if it's not, but again, don't wait until the very last minute, like some of you've been waiting. That's not gonna fly. You're doing that too much. And unfortunately, it has harmed some of your grades. I'm not saying anybody in particular. Just saying some of you in general. Again, some of you have been. I know one person actually finished the project, so. And they took their time, but it didn't take them that long. All right, here we go. Let's talk about this problem right here. So anytime, so now we're into section 8.4. Intersecting chords. You use this formula. A times B equals C times D. Oops. Now, here's what you can do. A problem like this, and I'm going to give you a little hint. A and B are on the same line. C and D are on the same line. Now, A and B, well, actually, with A could be anyone you want. So, somebody tell me which one do you want to assign with the letter A? Which 10? This one? Sure. So there's your A. Now, what must B equal? Remember, A and B have to be on the same line. So you can pick A to be whatever you want. So this value of 10 is A. Then this value of 10 must be, that's got to be B. And then at this point, but once you get your A, got to stand in line to get the B. And then with C and D, doesn't matter what C and D are going to be at this point? No. So 20 could be C, X could be D, or if you flipped it, if you said D, C, that's all right. And actually, most important thing is making sure, because on your actual test, it's going to be just like this. Your homework was a little different because you had to deal with distribution, which some of us were still struggling with. And if there's time, we might talk about a problem like that. I think on one of your homework problems, you had to deal with distribution. If there's time, we might review it. All right, but now, are we at a point that we can solve this problem? Really, it's just what, 1, maybe 2 steps? Because what's 10 times 10? Equals, well, what's 20 times x?
28.
And then if we want to get x by itself, what's the one and only step we have to take?
Divide by 20.
That's it. Divide by 20. This problem's over. Again, it's all about that setup. Got to get that setup right. I can't stress that enough. If you don't get the setup right, then your whole problem goes goodbye. So then what's left for x? X equals what number? It was 100 divided by 20, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we should be using them calculators. 5. Thank you, Andrew. 5 equals x. All right, questions on this problem? I promise you're gonna see this on a test. So Dennis, Narcus, be well aware. Okay, you said it. Make sure you're gonna pass this test. Again, you can use your one-page of notes front and back, but do make them. Because if you don't, it's not gonna be like Unit 7 where you got away with it from memory. That's not going to happen in this case. This one's going to be harder. But again, you have to practice identifying. Given a diagram, this is what I do. This is how I solve the problem. All right. Let me show you another one. Where's your agenda? Give me a second. Let me write down. Let me start this setup. Okay, for a problem like this, these are ABCs. And for a problem like this, here's your setup. It's going to be A times A. So we multiplying A times itself equals B times B plus C. That's going to be your setup. There's your setup. Something wrong at all. Now, I want to talk about this type of problem because, again, some of us were having difficulties with distribution. Again, you need to understand what's where. So for this problem, what's our value of A? What's our A value? It's going to be 8. What are you going to multiply 8 by? Itself. So what would 8 times 8 be? 8 times 8 is? All right. That part's not too bad. Now, B, we said, was 4. So B equals 4 times B plus C. So B is 4 plus C is, now C is that distance from here to here. What is that distance represented by? It's represented by the, what do we see there? Right there. It's our X. Now here is where we need to be careful. We need to distribute. Do not add 4 plus X. Too many of you were doing that in the past. 4 plus X you cannot do. 4 plus X is not 4X. You need to do your distribution. 4 times 4, what do you get? What's 4 times 4, ladies and gentlemen? 16. And then what about 4 times x? Well, can we do anything to the 4 times x? Or is it just 4x? Let me fix that. Fix that up a little. So we have 4 times 4, 16. And then what's 4 times x? It's just 4x. So we have 64 equals 16 plus 4x. Now, are you at a point where you can solve for the x? Can we solve for x with this problem? Do it. I want you all to do it. Give you all about a minute. You get it, let me know. You got it. You got it. You got it. Still working on it? Okay. So 16 plus 4x. Okay, so you gotta do that now. Remember, these two, the 4 plus x, you cannot combine. Some of us were combining those terms. You can't do that. All right, Aristotle, it looks like you got it too. Ron, what are we up to? What's up here? Yeah. Okay, so. All right, so you have 64 equals 16 plus 4x, okay? Now, we need to move a term. Can you combine these two terms? No, you can't. It's 16 plus a 4x, but the 4x, you can't combine them. They did 2 different terms. So one of them has to move. So, well, look on the other side. Do you see an x term on the other side? So then, so you can't move the 4x, you have to move the 16. So, are you adding or subtracting 16? You're going to have to minus 16 on both sides. There you go. Right. Look better now. You got it, Fernando. Good. Sorry, looks like you got it. Oh, there you go. You finishing up that one, Dennis? Yeah. All right. All right. She comes back. Okay. So, looks like, here's what happens. We can't combine 16 plus 4x. Therefore, you have to take away 16 on both sides because 64 does not have an x. So we want to separate. We need to separate this guy from all the other terms. So it's going to be minus 16 on both sides of your equal sign. Remember, your equal sign is here. So then 64 minus 16 is 48. 48 equals 4x. And then we divide both sides by 4. So then what's left? X is how much? Most of you got it. So X was, what's 48 divided by 4? 12. Okay, questions? Yeah, most of you got it. Some of us struggled a little. Right. This one, similar, but it's a little different. I'm going to show you how to identify everything. So, you might get something like this. So, separate it. All right. So our setup for this type of problem, anytime you have the 4 parts, unlike the last one, you just had 3, 1, 2, 3. This one with the 4, you're going to have to do the following. It's going to be A times A plus B equals C times C plus D. That's your setup. You got to get this set up 100%. And then from there, you're just plugging in. Because our A value is, what's our value for A? A is 4 times 4 plus. What did we choose for B? What letter? So X. And then C is 3 times C plus 3. 3 plus 13. So that's going to be our setup for this problem. All right, so I'll give everybody a moment to look at it. So that's our setup. Now, first things first. On this side, you have to multiply the 4 times 4 and the 4 times x. So similar to before. 4 times 4 plus 4 times x. Well, again, what's 4 times 4, ladies and gentlemen? Who can tell us what's 4 times 4?
16.
Thank you. Four times 4 is 16. What? And then what about the 4x? Do we do anything to the 4x or just leave it alone? Okay, right now we're going to leave that alone. Now on the other side of the equal sign, you got a couple of options. Can we distribute or can we just work inside the parentheses? Also, actually, I'll make your life even easier. This 3 times 3 plus 13. Can you just type that whole side into the calculator? What do we get? Type exactly what you see right here. 3 times 3 Well, you have to have parentheses. Plus 13. What do you get? You get, yeah, in the end, that's going to be 48. So again, you had two options. Most obvious, combine these terms. So then you're just left with 3 times 16, which is 48. Now, you're back at a point you could solve for x like before. Literally, almost the exact same problem. I mean, you're going to get a little different answer, but we're at a point we can solve for the x. So I want y'all to try that real quick. All right, did we get a value for x? Looks like you definitely got it, Araceli. Yep. What's up? Oh, I thought you had a question, but you did that perfectly. Yep, you got it. Yep, you got it too. All right. Okay, you finish that up, Andrew? Did you get an answer? Okay. So what do we get for x? X is 8. So we have 4x is 32. And then divide by okay, so 4x divided by 4, left with x, 32 divided by 4, left with 8. All right. Questions on this problem? Again, remember, you might want to put this as part of your one-page notes, front, back, to prepare for your test. All right, here we go. Next one. Now we're kind of going back to first part of this whole unit. This is from Unit 8, Day 1. Basically, you need to follow a squared plus b squared, I'm sorry, equals c squared. Now, here's what you need to do. Pythagorean theorem. Which side is always going to be, C is always going to represent which side? Which side is always going to represent C? Shortest, medium, or longest? Longest. Look at your numbers. You got to be careful. It's going to be 13. So now, is it going to matter what the other two are? No. A, B. Again, your longest number is always C. But now you got to substitute into the Pythagorean theorem. So it's going to be 4 squared plus 12 squared equals 13 squared. And then we just do the math. 4 squared is what number? What's 4 times 4?
16.
What's 12 times 12? 13 squared?
169.
Well, what's 16 plus 144?
160.
Yeah, you're right. It is 160. But does 160 equal 169? No, so that means the answer is
No.
no. That's no good. That's a no. You will get a question like this on your test. Bang, easy couple points. All right, any questions? Yeah, well, basically, that's all you do. Use Pythagorean theorem. Remember, C is always the longest side. That's the goal. Always. All right, questions on this problem? All right, last 3 are going to be real quick and easy. We're almost done. All right. So what's going to happen is we're going to get equation of the circle. It's going to be this form. Or I'm going to give you a center and a radius. You have to produce the equation of the circle. So opposite signs are going to be key. So what you're going to do, if you're told, okay, given this equation or this type of equation, I need a center. Here's how you're going to get that center. Your x value, well, look at the sign right here. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to highlight both of these numbers. So if I'm so my center, well, are you going to keep or change the sign of the two numbers that I highlighted? Are we keeping or changing signs? Who'd like to take a guess? So we see the two numbers that are inside the set of parentheses. To get the center of that circle, do we keep the -3 and the +1, or do we change the signs to +3 and -1? So are we keeping or changing? That's the question. Who wants to take a guess? I'll give you a hint. Look what's in red. What does red tell us to do with the numbers that we see? Yep. So a -3, is it going to stay -3 or does it it's going to be positive? So my center is going to be 3, comma, and then what's the opposite of +1? -1. Yep, you got to do opposites. Opposite signs. Gotta get those opposite signs, folks. Now, if you want the radius, here's what you do to get the radius. This 25, you're going to need your 25, but the 25, that actually represents r squared. So you take your 20, so if it's a radius, so original, if you want the radius, you got to take this 25 now to go from r squared to r. What do we do here? What do we need to do to the 25 to get our value? So if I'm going to go from r squared to r, does anybody remember what operation or what rule, might be the better word, what rule do we need to follow if we're going from r squared to r? Give you a hint. It's a two words. First word begins with an S. Huh? You never know. You might be right. Take a guess.
You said the first one starts with what?
Letter S.
Okay.
And the second word begins with an R. I'll give you another hint. What shape do you see right here?
Square.
The first word is square.
Square.
Again, word begins with an R. What grows under a tree?
Square root.
Square root. That's what you need to do. That's a square root right here. You got to take that square root of r. R squared, rather. So anytime you see something squared, square root cancels it. So now you just take care of the square root of r. I mean, square root of 25. So what would be the square root of 25? 5. That's your radius. That's all. So if you're given the equation, you're given r squared. That's what you're given here. That's what you were given here. And up here, that was the same thing. Now, if you're going the other way, this last problem, you're going to go in the opposite direction. I gave you a center with an X and a Y, and I'm giving you the radius. Now you need to go Control C. I'm going to copy this. You need this form. That's my center. That's my radius. What do we do? So I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. Radius of 4 means R is 4. Now to get R squared, what do I do to the 4? Okay, so what's 4 squared? 16. Equals now, how am I going to fill in these parentheses? Of course, what letter's going to go, what coordinate's going to go first? X or Y? What always comes first? X. And then you have a Y. Now, my X coordinate is 2. So, am I going to keep it as 2? Is it going to be X plus 2, or is it going to be X minus 2? Do I keep my sign, or do I change it? This 2, am I keeping, or am I changing? Do I keep it plus 2, or do I make it minus 2? Huh? I thought somebody might have said it. Well, come back up here. It's opposite. So what's the opposite of plus 2? And then what about the minus 5? Opposite signs, yes. All right. So basically, that's everything you need to know for this test. Again, you do have one page in